The Netherlands is facing a dire housing crisis, likely the worst in Europe. Over 390,000 homes are needed to address the country's deepening housing shortage. Meanwhile, students are living in tents and the homelessness rate is soaring. As such, the crisis has quickly become the main political issue in the country. However, the likely next Dutch Prime Minister Rob Jetten has put forward a bold idea to solve the crisis: to build 10 entirely new cities which will house thousands of new homes. So in this video, we'll unpack how the Netherlands ended up with such a deep housing shortage, why previous governments have struggled to fix it, and whether building 10 new cities could actually be a viable solution. The TLDR Black Friday sale is now on. That includes our biggest ever discounts on all products, including our coffee table book, our 2025 calendars, our colouring book, posters starting at $17.99 and much more. Find the full collection at toolong.news or by clicking the link in the description. Offer ends December the 3rd. Let's start with some context. After the Second World War, the Netherlands was devastated. Famine had taken its toll and much of the country's housing and infrastructure lay in ruins. To address this, the government poured substantial funding into housing associations, triggering a massive construction boom. Between 1945 and 1975, nearly 1/5 of Amsterdam's current housing stock was built, and nationwide the housing supply almost doubled. By the 1980s and 1990s, once the immediate post-war housing shortage had been addressed, the government shifted its approach. After decades of heavy spending, public debt had grown considerably. Policymakers began pulling back support for housing associations, which were restructured as more independent non-profits rather than extensions of the state. At the same time, the government actively encouraged home ownership by offering generous tax breaks. As buying became more attractive, the share of renters declined. This period also saw a rapid rise in mortgage debt. Between 1999 and 2009, Dutch household mortgage debt soared from about 55% to around 105% of GDP, the highest ratio in the world. Much of this was fueled by cheap credit and tax-subsidised borrowing. When the global financial crisis hit in 2008, many Dutch homeowners discovered that their mortgages exceeded the market value of their homes. The housing bubble burst and construction slowed sharply. With high public debts, the government pursued austerity measures, but they did not reduce tax benefits for homeowners. Instead, they introduced new taxes on housing associations, which means social housing became restricted to the lowest income groups. A substantial number of socially owned homes were sold to private investors, especially in cities like Amsterdam. Meanwhile, environmental rules aimed at curbing nitrogen pollution began halting construction projects across the country, and thousands of planned homes were stalled or cancelled, reducing affordable housing stock in central areas and pushing rents to new highs. Today, the ability to build social housing has been severely weakened. Housing corporations are underfunded and struggle to compete with private developers, especially given high land and construction costs. Buying a home has also become completely unattainable. From 2015 to 2021, the average household disposable income increased by 25%, but house prices rocketed by 63%, and today the average home costs more than 10 times the modal income. At first glance, the solution to the housing crisis seems obvious: simply build more homes to meet demand. Yet, despite the urgency, no government appears willing or able to commit to the scale of construction needed. A recent example was the collapse of the far-right PVV-led government earlier this year. Although the PVV had promised to accelerate house building, it quickly backed away once in power, faced with planning rules, environmental limits and budget pressures. Instead, it proposed a 2-year freeze on social housing rents, a move widely criticised as a superficial quick fix rather than creating a long-term solution. This is because whilst a rent freeze might help low-income households briefly, it also cut the income of housing corporations, limiting their ability to build new homes. It could even push more affordable units onto the private market, further reducing supply and increasing demand. Furthermore, with 60% of the land already built up, farmed or lying below sea level, the question of where and how to build is a highly political issue. In the run-up to October's general election, each political party had a different idea of what should be sacrificed to make room. Every party offered a different solution. Far-right anti-immigration leader Geert Wilders argued that local authorities should no longer be required to house refugees, and even proposed demolishing the National Public Media campus to redevelop the land into housing. Green Left Labour suggested phasing out mortgage interest tax relief over 12 years, converting airports and disused industrial sites into housing, and establishing a new non-profit housing corporation exempt from profit tax and backed by a government loan. The Christian Democrats focused on building large new neighbourhoods, while the left-wing Volt Party proposed closing the Tata Steel plant in IJmuiden and redeveloping the vast site into a new Tata city. In the end, the left-leaning centrist D66 party, led by Rob Yetten, won the election. And D66 has perhaps the most creative proposal on how to solve the housing crisis: building 10 new cities. Now, on the one hand, this plan is pretty unprecedented. As we've outlined, no recent government has proposed creating new urban centres on such a massive scale. At the same time, with about 1/4 of the country lying below sea level, the Netherlands has a long tradition of ambitious land reclamation projects. So, in many ways, the D66 is reviving this older tradition of large, nation-shaping spatial planning and applying it to today's housing shortage. One of the proposed cities would sit between Amsterdam and the province of Flevoland, a new settlement provisionally named IJstad, after the river running through northern Amsterdam. The plan envisions constructing an artificial island in the Markermeer Nature Reserve between Almere and Amsterdam, creating more than 2,500 hectares of new land. There, roughly 60,000 homes would be built, eventually housing more than 120,000 residents. The proposed location was chosen precisely because it could be linked to the Almere Pampas development area, where around 30,000 homes are already planned. The site is also tied to the long-awaited IJmuiden rail and road connection between Amsterdam and Almere, which would integrate the new city into the wider regional economy from the start. Now, so far, only plans for the IJstad city have been completely developed and published by the D66, so the plans for the other 9 cities are still underway. And whilst this all sounds like a great idea on paper, building entirely new cities will not be cheap. The total cost of the IJstad project, including the IJmuiden transport connection, is estimated at around €20 billion. Yet, importantly, the Netherlands does have fiscal room to invest. The public deficit stood at just 0.9% of GDP last year, far below both many EU countries and the EU's own 3% deficit ceiling. For now, D66 has yet to cobble together a coalition following last month's election, but Yetten does have the support of the centrist Christian Union Party, which has argued that it's positive to see the long-standing taboo on building in environmentally sensitive areas begin to fade. But other parties remain sceptical, favouring construction within existing urban areas rather than large-scale land reclamation. Ultimately, the future of these new cities will depend less on engineering viability and more on sustained political will. Before you go, we've just announced our new coffee table book, Assembly Required, and this Black Friday we're offering our lowest price ever, plus special discount bundles too. Assembly Required is our 300-page book which highlights 27 of the world's most beautiful parliament buildings, from the classics like Westminster, the Capitol or the Hungarian Parliament, to ones that you might not expect, like Georgia, Bhutan or Bangladesh. For each, we don't only show you beautiful photos of these actually incredible buildings, we also tell you the stories of the buildings, both through passages written by our team, as well as through detailed custom-designed floor plans and diagrams. We really did spend a long time on this too. We spent ages digging into the stories of parliament buildings all around the world, before narrowing it down to the most interesting and beautiful buildings, writing tens of thousands of words to tell you their stories. We've also made both desk and wall calendars based on Assembly Required too, allowing you to experience these beautiful buildings year-round. Both are also double-sided, providing tons of bonus images for you to enjoy. If you're interested, click the link in the description to find out more. Now's the time to order, as with the Black Friday sale ongoing, prices are as low as they'll get. That includes our bundles featuring the 2 calendars, which are also the lowest price they've ever been, and those offers end December the 3rd. So if you are interested, then your support will help us to continue investing in our journalism and providing free content for years to come. So thank you, as always.